to start with, as we always do, Outdoors Queensland respectfully acknowledges the traditional custodians of the lands where we gather right across Australia. We pay respect to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge any First Nations people who may be joining us, but also acknowledge the various roles that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have played and continue to play on the land, sky and the waterways used for outdoor activities. I'm in Brisbane or Meanjin on Yuggera country, and if you'd like to, you can pop in the chat the place and the country you're joining from today. I went to a tourism event last night where they had a really wonderful welcome to country from a leader, and he traced back his ancestry, and it was a really wonderful story the way he told it. And then he played the didgeridoo, although it's not called the didgeridoo in his language, but I didn't catch the actual wording. And he explained about the significance, the cultural significance of that instrument and other instruments as well. It was a really, really good start to that evening. So yeah, it was actually really, really well done, which you'd expect from our colleagues in tourism. I was probably expect nothing less. Outdoors Queensland also acknowledges the support that that is provided by the Queensland Government for outdoor activities right across our state, and acknowledge the work that's been done by multiple government departments and ministers, but also staff at Sport and Rec and other departments in relation to outdoor activities. So welcome to another session of Coffee and Conversation. I think David's just organising his rope delivery, but that'll be all right. I'm Dom Courtney, Executive Officer of Outdoors Queensland. I'd like to welcome all members of Outdoors Queensland, plus others who are joining us. And I see we've got Laurie from Outdoors New South Wales and ACT on the line, so welcome, Laurie. It's nice to have you here.
Thanks, mate.
I've got a little bit of a sad note to start on. I want to acknowledge the passing of John Wood, who is an Outdoors Queensland Life member, and he passed away last Friday. So John was also a life member of PLA, the Parks and Leisure Australia, and was a recipient of the PLA Frank Stewart Award in 2012, which is like the highest honour that PLA awards. And life membership of Outdoors Queensland is the highest honour that Outdoors Queensland or CORF has awarded as well. So we actually lost someone who really has contributed greatly, an amazing amount of work over so many years. And I just wanted to acknowledge that up front and just put it out there that our thoughts and our condolences are with John's family and his friends at this time. As I said before, we're recording these sessions. They're publicly available on our website and on YouTube. This is our 19th episode of Coffee and Conversation for 2021. And I just thought we might do something a little bit different today. I'm flying solo today, so Mark's actually in a meeting today doing some work, which is terrific, rather than joining me. So I don't have him as a co-host, but I also just thought, rather than the joys of another hour-long PowerPoint presentation, that we might just have a group discussion today and talk about what's going on in the world that you're in. So I might just stop my screen share, because that's pretty much it as far as the presentation that I've prepared. And I'm not just doing this because I didn't prepare a presentation. And literally just have a chat, see how things are going. I guess I sort of had a few questions that I wanted to open it up and say, you know, what's going on in your worlds, and, you know, just have a discussion about what is happening out there and you know, what is actually what are the things you're seeing right now. I just wanted to open it up and see if anyone wanted to go first on that one. Anyone?
I'll kick in as the outsider. Just quick. Just a quick one for everyone. The National Outdoor Education Conference is actually being held next Wednesday, and it's online. It's the precursor to the big event, so you can actually get access to this if you haven't already got a ticket for the big event for only $30 if you want to join us. But there's some great speakers that are coming along. It is available. Put the website in the chat, but I think it's really important. There's some real big lessons that are being learnt over the last 18 years, feels like 18 years, 18 months, on how we look at outdoor education. And we've got Parsi Salberg from a nature play perspective. We've got Sharon Goldfeld, and we've also got Shane Fitzsimmons, who he's a bit like royalty here in New South Wales. He may not be everywhere else, but he oh, thank you for that. He's heading up Resilience New South Wales here, but he's well known for his role in the as commissioner for the Royal Fire Service. So he's outstanding. I've known him for years, and he's a great colleague. So coming along to that first session will be awesome. The second session is around the ACARA review. So if you are in education and you're looking at the curriculum changes, that's a must. The third session is actually about some of the activity we've been doing at the Outdoor Council of Australia. And then the fourth session is nature play. And then the last session is the Outdoor Education Awards. So the Fellow Awards, the Service Awards, the Practitioner Awards, and then the Program Awards. So the finalists for all the programs have just been released. I can take you through them if you haven't seen it. But yeah, if it's something that you can get to on Wednesday, we'd love to have you, because it'll be a great event.
Yep. And tickets are still available, Laurie?
Absolutely. Tickets will be available up until Monday, 5 o'clock. So, yeah, jump on the website and book your ticket in.
Terrific.
You'll get the link on Monday.
Yep. Cool. Thank you for that.
It's okay.
No. Yeah. Yeah, I would encourage people, if you can attend the NOAC event next week. I think it'll be definitely of value. Does anyone else have an update on what's going on in your space and whether it's with a club or in your business or different activities, what's going on? Does anyone else want to fire away? I saw Matthew put a note in the chat about people still being reluctant making bookings with activities, and Nature Freedom has seen massive downward trend of bookings since the June lockdowns. I think that is happening across the board, Matthew. I think there's it's funny. It's not funny. It's actually difficult with, I think, quite a lot of activities. We had that short lockdown, but people now seem to be very reluctant to book in advance. And even as things approach, I think it's affecting all sorts of businesses and clubs. And it seems to be a really tough one at the minute. Even though we are in Queensland so fortunate to be, quite open to all these different activities, but it just seems to be on the decline. I think school camps are back up and running and busy, but I think there's also a reluctance for a lot of people to book in. Does anyone else have a comment on that one?
I mean, we're seeing the same down here in northeast Victoria, and I've got friends in other places, except for, say, the West, who seem to have lived in their own world. Yeah, the rest of us on the East Coast are probably fairly. I think you're better off than New South Wales and Victoria, yeah.
I don't. Well, we are. We're not going to argue, but I think there's still a big reluctance as far as a lot of those things. So I think I think everyone's tired too, and I think that there's that level of uncertainty in everything, and also I think the sense that as we book into things, they get derailed at the last minute. I don't know. Maybe there's that sense as well. People are causes some more reluctance.
Yeah, that's true, because I think if people are like anxiety, fear around what they changes pop up, like announcement at 10 o'clock every morning, and the people have probably been really really stressed out from what's gone over the past year, and especially in their life, the workplaces, to school with the kids, or stuff about disability care services, health system. Yeah, I think it's pretty funny news because, you know, like it's been a school holiday. I still see a lot of people with traffic going up north to Sunshine Coast, and people do go down to the Gold Coast. It seems that people become a little bit more independent of what they want to do from themselves rather than joining something where we have been traditionally. So I think the way how COVID impact, it makes the community less inclusive of what it meant to be in the past. Like family are used to be hanging out with other families, or one community group hang out with the other community group. They're becoming more separated. And that's why people have doing their own thing. So they go their own camping site and they do their own thing and all that. I think that's the vibe. It changed in the last 12 months. Like the people attitude towards that be a little bit more passive aggressive because of the fear and all that. So I have a really good example of what's happening here. I got an email from the Department of Environment and Science over the national park. The people were booking in Skip Point and Tintan Bay area to go to a campsite around there before they go on Kagari Island. They were saying people who book in advance, and they, okay, because that's an individual case. However, there's a lot of people booking in who come to there and took the spot by somebody else who did not book the permit. So you can see that's an example of passive aggressive behavior where people probably be very reluctant to make a booking. They just turn up and not doing anything, but supposed to be, you know, had their behavior being regulated. So I think that's something changed. Yeah,
I think there is a lot of that, and it's a bit. I think it's really challenging, some of that sort of behaviour happening, and I mean it's probably happening right across society. I think we probably are noticing it more in the outdoors because realistically we're not used to that sort of behaviour really, which is great that it doesn't happen so often in our space. But yeah, I think you make a good point, and the reluctance to book activities with clubs or businesses is actually making a difference. I guess the question is, how do we change that? What do we need to put in place to ensure people are comfortable booking into our services? And, you know, whether it's just a very clear refund policy that, you know, if COVID derails this or something else, we will refund your money or we'll transfer you to the next available slot, you know, postpone it. I guess that's the sort of stuff that we need to make sure that it does, you know, address that issue and maybe overcome some of that reluctance. I'm not sure. Peter, did you want to say something? I
was just saying it's interesting hearing everyone else's comments because we're in a somewhat different situation because we're a volunteer-based community organisation. We do activities that are either very low cost or free, and people are still booking in like mad. You know, I've got 60 people on a waiting list for an activity at the beginning of October, and we sort of rely on donations to keep us running, so people don't pay anything until they actually turn up on the day. It's taken us a while to get a process that works for managing people booking in and then not turning up. So we've got fairly good communication on that now. What we are finding with COVID is that anyone who's got the merest hint of a sniffle or anything like that in their family, they'll be late cancellations. So we'll have people sort of not turn up at very short notice. The other thing that we've noticed is on the Brisbane Bay side is that there's actually a lot more people making use of the facilities than there used to be. People have discovered their local area a lot more. So the beaches and the little bits of bay that we were using that weren't too crowded, we're now fighting for space to use. And that's an interesting twist, I think, which is really good.
Yeah, it's a different problem to have, isn't it? I think that's happening in national parks. It's happening all over the place when people are rediscovering some of these places, which some of us have known about for a little while and maybe kept a little bit under our hat. But yeah, it's I think it's an interesting twist on it. But yeah, thanks, Peter. Yeah, I mean, you're obviously doing something right.
Our biggest problem is actually fundraisers. We're relying very heavily on weekly Bunnings barbecues.
There's only freshwater crocodiles, sir. Sorry? There's only freshwater crocodiles, sir. So doesn't mean that they are here.
You got some crocodiles up there, Wade?
Yes, sir. There are freshwater crocodiles in the lake. They are harmless, sir.
They're harmless.
Correct, sir. They are.
Put him off.
Freshwater crocodile. They're harmless to
For the record, I need to say Wade's up in the Northern Territory, not in Queensland.
I think he thought he was muting him.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so fundraising's been our big challenge because we did have sort of weekly Bunnings barbecues to fund us, and that's not happening, hasn't been happening since March last year. So our big challenge is getting money.
Right.
Apologies for that, guys. Sorry, I've just was unable to find the mute button at the time.
That's all right, mate. No worries. So what's going on in the Territory, Wade? Do you want to give us a little update on how you're going?
It's all happening in the Territory at the moment. I've just had a large group of kayakers from Catherine on the water. We're another group's just arrived. They look like Darwin people, new Australians. They've got a bit of an accent. Some of them may be from the Charles Darwin University, I believe. We are just about to enter a Territory tourism voucher scheme, which is supported by the government, and they're contributing money towards domestic travel within the Northern Territory. So our business is poised to take advantage of the vouchers. Will organise a accommodation, kayak, canoeing, or stand-up paddleboard session for the clients. They get out here, possibly a meal voucher. We haven't finalised that as yet. That's just in its final stages. But, welcome to my office. This is Getaways Resort at Lake Bennett, Northern Territory. That's my little hangout during the day.
Wait, on day 92 of lockdown, that's not what I'm wanting to see right now.
Well, I invite you when you do have the opportunity to get out of lockdown.
I'll be there in a shot. Thank you.
I was mentioning to my boss yesterday. I possibly, I most definitely would be in a situation of extremely bad mental health at this stage if I was in Melbourne. I'd been down there previously with Bart Cummings working for a year, just really perfecting my horse skills, and I hated it. 2:30 in the morning, cold weather, but in the environment where you couldn't go out, that'd make things even worse. And so I do feel for you guys down south, and don't think that you aren't in our thoughts. The situation could rapidly deteriorate up here, so I'm really learning from the practices that you've put in place, and
awesome.
Being aware that should it happen, that I have trusted associates that have set up decent systems that I know I can rely on.
So good.
Let's just cross our fingers and pray for this man. For the man.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Wade. I've got a question to throw out there. Does anyone else want to have a chat about what's going on in their organisations? But I guess my other question I have, which is trying to look at the positives, is what are people excited about right now? What are the things coming up that they're actually, looking forward to, making happen or implementing in your organisations, or, within what's going on in your operating environment? Is there something in particular, other than NOAC next Wednesday, of course, but what other things are we excited about at the minute? Anyone?
Well, I took the opportunity from bushfire grants to take up a business consultancy opportunity from the federal government, through the Victorian government, and I've restructured my whole business with the management side of it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how having a professional manager and a professional website and social media people, as we start to get customers, that should improve my ability to actually provide a better service, a quick service, quick bookings, and good information that I often forget to do when I was trying to run it all myself.
Terrific. That sounds awesome, Dave.
But what I would say is that a lot of people in our area haven't taken those sorts of opportunities up. And I think many governments have business consultants, and a lot of people in my area think that you have to be a big business, to get any advantage, whereas we're only a tiny business, a micro business, and it's it was a 2-year program, and most of the state ones at least 12 months. I think it's an opportunity for people to get some really good advice. You don't have to take it, of course, but we found it very useful for the first time.
Terrific. Thanks, Mike. What else are we excited about, Gavin? I saw you've unmuted.
Yeah, I'm just excited about the progress of our Barrington Burner Trail, the amount of support it's getting from around the place. We've now got a contact person in New South Wales National Parks about it to work with. So yeah, it's just going ahead leaps and bounds. We've got groups of people out now ground truthing. So yeah, it's all happening.
That's great, Gavin. Yeah.
Who are you working with at New South Wales National Parks?
I can't remember the name now. I'll have to.
Linda?
With it.
Yeah, Linda Hall?
No.
Okay. Awesome, let me know.
So I had the pleasure of being down at Binnaburra last Monday for the opening of the Bushwalkers precinct down there, where they've opened up the bunkhouse and the Bushwalkers bar and everything, and it was good to see the recovery that they've had up at Binnaburra as well. So.
Yeah, so that's post bushfire work that they've been working on for quite a while. They've had that, I think, in the pipeline for it probably is 18 months. That they've been talking about what they're going to redo there to get it happening. So it's pretty good, Gavin.
Yeah. The Bushwalkers bunkhouse has got 4 cabins. One holds 9, one holds 12, one holds 16, and one holds 24 people. And they're just basically a mattress and a box to put your gear in, so you can just pull up overnight. Got a nice bed, and the bar next door to drown your sorrows or celebrate your walk.
Terrific. Thanks, mate. Benoni, did you want to say something? I saw you unmuted.
I just wanted to say we're excited about having 5 groups on site for the first time in a long time as of today. We're about to embark on our busiest ever October. It's just nice to see people wanting to get back into it. There's 20,000 netballers on the Sunshine Coast this weekend. So we have got our eyeballs full of netball players. And as well as
I should have been there.
as well as October being just a bumper because we did have that lockdown period. So thankfully we only lost 2 groups out of that whole lockdown period. They were able to all move across into October, November, which is going to be a challenge for my team. But everyone's actually really excited about having a really busy period.
It sounds like it's not just a busy October. It sounds like a busy term 4 for you.
Yeah, crazy term 4 for us.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Wow. Is that similar for other camp operators? Is that what's happening at the minute, like for others, or is Benoni just happened to capitalise on where you're located and everything else that's going on?
Yeah, definitely. The Queensland venues are in that same position, Dom. Where we're fairly well booked through the next term 4. So looking pretty good over Chrissy holidays as well. So we're sort of at the moment, just making some plans, of how we're going to approach the Christmas holidays and such. So yeah, pretty busy.
Great. Yeah, it's good to hear.
Yeah, all the QCCC sites are jam-packed term 4.
Yeah.
So partly some new business, partly the, just rebooking those 3 weeks we lost in term 3. So
yeah. So that business has come back overall, Andrew, the ones that were cancelled?
the majority of groups are really good in that 3-week period to try and postpone, not cancel.
Yeah.
Probably the only exception to that would be some regional schools going into Brookfield. And obviously, particularly in that 3-week patch, regional parents would look on Google Maps and Brookfield looks awfully close to Indooroopilly. So we lost a few of those, but we've filled that up with other schools that were looking at rebooking from other sites and that sort of thing. So,
yep, that's great. Yeah, I don't know if anyone saw it. I think we might have shared it as well, but there was a ABC article during the week on the ABC News website about, I think it was Pacific Leather, and Kim Wood from there was quoted about a trip they did rather than going down to the Snowy Mountains. Sorry, David. They headed out to outback Queensland and went, I think it was out to Longreach, and went out there and took a school group out to Western Queensland and had an outback experience instead. So I think it was really interesting. It was good to see the ABC covering that as a, I guess it's another use. They can use the word pivot just for one more time, but it was just great to see that, they got some coverage of that sort of experience for their kids too.
There's a school campsite being built at Winton.
Is there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's good to see too. I don't know how much work it'll get in the summer months, but yeah, there's plenty of good opportunities out there. And I mean, it's wonderful learning experiences too in Western Queensland, particularly with the dinosaurs and the culture too. So yeah, it's good to see. It's funny how some of these opportunities may not have emerged if there hadn't been this little crisis going on. But yeah, it's interesting to see. Hopefully that'll be successful.
Don, I have a question for those that are getting the bookings back. Has there been any reluctance from families? Like schools are booking them. Has there been any questions, repercussions, anything where schools are going, no, it's too risky, I don't want my kid to go?
No, the opposite.
Great.
Like our numbers are probably up 10% on what would a normal group be.
Awesome.
And I think it's just parents want their kids to go on camp, to be honest. So.
We've had a bit of a
I'm
mix,
hoping
actually,
so.
Andrew. We've had some groups whose parents haven't wanted the kids to come, especially if they've been regional kids coming into the area. But yeah, it's been a bit of a mix. We, a lot of times they just need to understand that they're not actually interacting with another school while they're here to alleviate the parents' fears. But yeah.
Awesome. So, but Nani, are you guys still strictly running the zone system for your groups?
Yeah, we always have anyway.
Yeah.
It works for us. We've got the dining rooms and the meeting rooms to be able to keep all our groups separate. So yeah, it works for us, and it works for the group. So we've been keeping that going.
Yeah.
We don't have our chains up all around the site like we physically had as zones when we first started anymore. They're there in case we get thrown back into it, but yeah, we still do give people their own space.
We're the same. We don't have to with the public health directions, but it's not a drama, so we keep going with it.
Yeah, it's just become a way of managing the site as well. And if we, I think that's an interesting thing, that it's may not have had to have been done before, but maybe it could have been done even 2 years ago. And just keeping the group separate is one of those actions as far as outdoor ed that seems to make sense anyway. I noticed, Kathy, you're on the line. I think you're joining us from the UK. You're on mute.
Yes, I'm still working over here with the guides and scouts. It's been very interesting. We're sort of post-lockdown, but sort of not. We've actually been finding, I'm working with guides and scouts here, and we've been finding that as soon as we mention a day activity or a camp, it just fills up straight away, and we have a waiting list. The parents just want their kids to get away and do something finally.
Yeah.
It's been really interesting.
That is interesting. And I guess the question's going to be, how do you capitalise on that and turn it into a recurring rather than a one-off behaviour?
Well, we've actually got huge waiting lists for kids wanting to join. We've got 45 in our group, which is enormous, and all the others are the same. The parents are just looking for things to finally get the kids involved with, and we just can't take enough or do enough outdoor activities for them.
That's terrific. Yeah. It's interesting to hear that sort of trend emerging out of all of this as well.
Yeah, it's been good.
I went to a Scouts event with the governor up at Government House a couple of weeks ago, and it was interesting there because they talked about the scouting at home work that they've done to keep their current members engaged, but also talking about how they can engage new members as we come out of COVID and look at the the opportunities it provides, including the development of resilience, but also just the social engagement that outdoor activities can lead to, and particularly Scouts and Guides and other community organisations.
Yeah, that's a lot of what they have been missing from what we're hearing from parents especially. Yeah, and the emotional support has certainly been needed there as well.
Yeah, and particularly I think that peer support in that side of things is critical in it.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, it's great. We had 60 kids out on the water at a canoe day at the weekend. It was just magic.
Yeah. So, I mean, your weather would be obviously so much better than the Queensland weather at the moment. I think it's only 28 degrees today. So what sort of weather did you have for your paddling?
It was actually a beautiful sunny day, hardly a cloud in the sky, and 22 degrees.
Oh, beautiful. You timed that well.
Yeah, but I won't tell you what today was like.
Just as beautiful, I'm sure, Kathy.
In a different way, yes, maybe.
Yeah. So I have another question, and this is a different side of the same coin. What are people concerned about right now? And we're not just all going to say lockdown. Sorry, Laurie. Sorry, David. What are we seriously? What are we concerned about going forward for the next 3 months, 6 months? What's the big?
I've got to head off. I've got something I would mind to bring up, or two things. When people talk about more people going out themselves, Mount Buffalo has never had more than 240,000 visitors, visitors for whatever reason. Last year, calendar year, we went up to 255,000, an extra 15,000, even though the bloody place was locked down after time. That was pretty amazing. Yes, people getting out. The other thing is what we're doing in my business. I'm looking through what are the threats for the future. Yeah, for instance, and how can I turn them into positives?
Yeah. Like on the increased visitation, David, Queensland National Parks went up from the financial year before COVID. I think they had bookings of, I think it was something like 450,000 camping nights.
Yep.
And the last financial year, they had 750,000. So it went up by 1.5 times the number of bookings at national parks camping sites in 12 months. And it shows that increase. But yeah, the interesting thinking about the threats to the organisations, and some of these are probably, I think some of this is COVID has actually exposed some flaws in some of our systems, but it's interesting to think about it as threats as well.
Wait there.
Yeah, it's interesting, Dom. I think we had the same in New South Wales on visitation numbers, but what was really intriguing, and with another hat that I wear, I'm doing a lot with small businesses in tourism, and their actual reviews and ratings and people's satisfaction has dropped immensely. And so even though we've had this huge demand, what we haven't done well is match the needs of the clients. And that's probably because a great deal of some of our tourists were meant to be in the south of France or in Canada. So, obviously their expectations, and we haven't really articulated the expectations of our products well. So that has reflected poorly in that review process. So I think and you guys are already out there experiencing some of this now, but certainly something that I'm trying to say to my guys is set your expectations, you know, in your marketing, deal with your capacity issues, because certainly capacity is going to be a big thing coming out of this, and how we manage it for lesser risk. But also, you know, really understand the needs of the customer, because they are changing, and that's completely evident.
Yeah, thanks, Laurie. It's I'd imagine there are a different level of expectation between someone going to the south of France or maybe outback Queensland / outback New South Wales.
Just a little bit. I mean, even to the point where they go, I'll just have the first available accommodation, I need to get away, and they book a cabin in a caravan park, and it's not a cheap option, but then totally shocked they've got to do their own laundry. So.
Oh, what do you mean? You don't have the concierge service in your caravan parks?
I'm talking about a caravan park in your state. That's one of my clients.
Well, you don't have to wash shorts and t-shirts and thongs, yeah.
That's why you go for a swim, David.
Yeah, that's right. One of the things before I go is, if you're looking at opportunities and threats, I've talked to my team about, let's look outside what's happening with COVID and what other things are happening in the world that might affect us in short to medium to long term. I mean, a good example, for instance, is interest rates are nearly nothing, except for credit cards, but they are going to go up. Yeah, they're going to go back up. So if people are borrowing money, it's not paying it back at a small percentage. You might be paying it back at 16%. The other one, a good example, is this Evergrande mob in China. Yeah, if that goes over, they're talking at least a 20% possibility of another world bloody credit, financial crisis. Well, it's not a big risk. We're actually planning, well, I'm making sure that financially we can survive those types of things. Yeah. So I'm turning that into an opportunity, because I think many of my competitors, as happened last time, don't survive because they've borrowed on private cars and, houses and stuff that they can't afford to pay on today's rates. But I think you can turn disadvantages into advantages. That's just one example, but there's lots of things happening out there. Yeah.
Completely. Yeah. I saw Andrew put a concern there about vaccine hesitancy among staff, which Benoni seconded, and I think that's certainly one. We had a good discussion about that a fortnight ago, about that side of things, and I think that's going to make a big difference in the coming months for sure.
It's going to be an interesting one to watch, because certainly talking with the lawyers on it, there is a lot of cases out there, a hell of a lot of cases around flu vax, and there's not one that's been won by an employee, not one.
Right.
So it's going to be, incredibly interesting to watch.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it last time. There's a lot of information on the Fair Work Ombudsman's website. There's a lot of lawyers have actually written articles out there and put them out there as a free article about their opinions on mandatory flu vaccine and employment law. I think the big thing is actually, I think people are waiting and seeing if government's going to mandate it rather than an employer or a club. Thanks, David. Thanks for joining us, mate.
Okay, see you next time.
Righto. See you, mate.
I don't think government will mandate it, but I think we'll be in a situation where we're going to have clients demanding 100% vaccine coverage when only 80% of the general population is vaccinated. So it's a really almost unreasonable expectation to place on the employer. And the reality that I think in Queensland there probably is about 20% vax hesitancy. So what do you do with that 20% of staff? Again, it's very heavy-handed to expect 100%.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really difficult. And I tend to agree with you, Andrew. I think it's what is actually a reasonable expectation. That's the big question in there. And the clients demanding it, I think that's going to be another piece that, that how does that work? How does it work for an employer when you're running your business? It's there's a whole lot of complexity to what seems like a simple request, I think. So, yeah.
I think it's interesting in New South Wales, it's not mandated for us. The incentives have been in vax around the public. But the public get the release of restrictions if they're vaccinated. But we asked the question of Department of Education particularly because they've mandated it with all their staff, and they were very clear it's only their staff, not people that they contract and not people that they engage in. So they're not enforcing it on us at all. Where the legislation is the challenge is actually in the individual and the work health and safety legislation. So really it's more of an organisational decision, not necessarily a client relationship decision.
I saw another news article. It was about it was a caravan park on the Murray River. I'm not sure which side of the border it was on, but they've put it out there that they're only accepting bookings from people who are double vaccinated, partly because they're concerned about I think the owner's father lives on site with them and they don't want him to catch anything, but and he's got some chronic illness, it said in the article. But they're also saying some of the people who, the grey nomads have health conditions and they don't want them, they want to provide a healthy environment for that. And you're like, whoa. And they've copped a lot on social media about saying we're only going to take bookings from people who are vaccinated from this date. And it wasn't even straight away. But they've copped a lot of flack. And you think, gee, that's interesting because they're a small business who just made a decision. And people have criticised them, I think, for it's not mandated by government. Why are you doing that? And the guy's short answer was, it's my caravan park.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, so
Birds
it's
with
really
Bash did it too, didn't they? Yeah,
the Big Red Bash, they did it. Yeah, and I think they copped a little bit of flack, but they still sold thousands of tickets. Yeah. And,
I think the challenge in this discussion is around whether people have COVID or they don't, because they can still transmit it if they're vaccinated. And I think people forget that vaccination is not a full length protection. They can still transmit it. They can still catch it. They're just going to be asymptomatic in a lot of cases. So I think it's more about that visibility when you're talking about vaccinations versus, prevention.
Yeah. And it's about also not ending up in hospital and not overloading the health condition, the health system with yourself. And that is a good point. You can still pass it on to other people. So yeah. I have another question to put out to the group. So what assistance might be needed? And I'm not just talking about government support, whether it is government support, assistance from Outdoors Queensland, assistance from the Outdoor Council of Australia, and also maybe from your colleagues. Like, what assistance do you actually need right now or even in the next few months? I guess that's a question partly for me to inform some of the work we do, but also when I get a chance to have conversations. I was talking about that tourism event I went to last night. They had they didn't have the tourism minister there because I think he's away at the moment, but they had standing in for him Bart Mellish, who's the assistant minister for quite a few things, but one of them included he's the Queensland assistant minister for economic recovery from COVID, which I didn't know that was a position, but it was interesting. I only had a very brief chance to have a little, just to say hello basically, but it's interesting to know that there is, someone that's his job within the government to be focused on economic recovery from COVID. So, which is obviously what the tourism people are certainly happy to talk to him. But I think that's one of those things that, sorry? I was just going to say that I think that's one of the things of what do we actually need to be ready to ask for if we get opportunities like that. As they come up, we'll certainly keep that, we've got a watching brief on that, but what assistance do you feel is likely to be needed in the next little while, whether it's for, I guess for the outdoor industry as a whole, if you've got that sort of high level view on things, or whether it's locally, what assistance your organisation might need.
Yes, that's a good question. I haven't thought about this for a couple of months. It's maybe a little bit COVID recovery economy related, but it's also think about what direction we're heading toward. So we have Brisbane 2032 Olympics as well, and how government funding program prioritize in like fitness eligibility in terms of their selection criteria, and also how the promotion of tourism and like including our industry to get the people understanding about our workplace safety communication around that, to give people confidence to being out there, and that including the previous conversation you guys just before saying about people confidence to being vaccinated and mandated, especially if you talk about this time next year. If everyone is vaccinated, would you be sure that people are not being hesitant about that? But it is a lot of gaps in how funding program works, as well as the one in the email I told you about. I could see there's a bit of gap in how we run an organization. That's a little bit concerning, because this means like the same with small businesses grants, social enterprise grants, or they related stuff out what they've been advertising for so far this year. There's still so many gaps in that area, because the one will have been what works before the pandemic came. It's not going to work now because they're not prioritizing or including them, because the way they say the model, it's like every business need to be on a payroll, and every business had to be a particular member or affiliation of that certain thing. But there is still a lot of businesses as similar as us in the same shoes that don't have both. It's just how the business model set up. So yeah, I've just found it a bit interesting why they focus in that kind of approach, because it's so old fashioned, but I might perceive it. Yeah, I don't know how you see the gap in what will survive and the other not going to survive because of priorities, you know. So
that's a good point, Matthew. And I think that's one of those ones of understanding where the gaps are in funding opportunities and grant programs, and that's something that we'll certainly continue to do, to put it in there and say, say particularly to government agencies, these, if this grant program isn't including some of the people who are trying to deliver the valuable services for the outdoors, make sure they're getting that feedback so they understand that and they can possibly modify it for future grant rounds and that sort of thing. I think the sport and rec grants, they have tried to change some of the way that they make funding available, but there's still work to be done. I think they'd recognise that. They have just released a new one which is aimed directly at state level organisations. So Bushwalking Queensland will be one of them, Gavin, that they've only just released it this week, and we're looking for some more information about that one. But yeah, that's a new grant fund, but it is only for state level organisations. It's not intended for others. So there are other grant programs out there right now, but yeah, and again, it's a matter of who's eligible, and you've got to have a good look at the eligibility of some of those programs. Once we get some more info on that, we'll certainly circulate that as well. There's also at the moment one of those community gambling benefit, I'm going to get the name wrong, gambling benefit rounds is open at the minute, and they've got a larger than normal for non-profit organisations funding round in early next year. They've announced. I think it's a significant increase. I think it's up to like $100,000. I don't know whether that means over COVID people have been gambling more than ever before, or they happen to have some extra money, which is a bit scary. But yeah, there is some of those ones which might be different eligibility requirements. So there again, we'll keep promoting those things as they come up. But yeah, it's certainly worth looking at any of those opportunities. But the hard bit is, you know, for every, I don't know, it's about your success rate on any of those grants, I think, is the hard thing. And the work that does go into putting in a grant application can't be underestimated. I think it needs to be considered in that. Other assistance required? I mean, I guess one of the questions I'd have straight up, and I know it's school holidays at the moment, so it's probably a smaller than normal size group today, but these sort of sessions, I guess the question, you know, do we keep going with these fortnightly? I'm happy to do it. I'm not trying to not provide it, but I guess the question is, do you guys see the value in this? Is this providing assistance for you as we have these discussions? And today is a very different one to normal. And I did that deliberately because I thought it probably would be a smaller group and a chance to have a bit of an open discussion.
We find them useful, beneficial, not, you know, there's that saying 2 heads is better than one, while having, you know, a lot more than 2 heads to bounce around ideas and challenges and people's approaches to things, I think it's been really valuable, and I can't see why that would change going forward. Yep,
sure. I mean, if people are valuing it, then we'll keep doing it. That's for sure. That's part of what we're here for. So, yeah. I did, probably one thing that I haven't mentioned, I know we're sort of getting a little bit short of time, but I did have a discussion this week with an operator who had a couple of kids turn up to camp in Queensland who were waiting on COVID tests, and that raised some serious concerns for me. But it turns out these kids and their families and the school had done absolutely nothing wrong. Under the COVID contact tracing system we have at the moment, there's 3 tiers of risk levels in sites. So there's close contacts, there's casual contacts, and then there's what they call low risk contact sites. And the low risk contact site, if you've been at one of those sites, the direction is go and get a COVID test and then go about your business. You don't have to self-isolate. And apparently these kids and their parents had checked, you know, is it okay for this child who'd been at a low risk contact site to go to school camp? And the answer from Queensland Health was, yep, it's a low risk site. So you can go about your business. There's no self-isolation at all unless you develop symptoms, and then you have to get another test and then do the isolation, do the quarantine. But I'd never heard of that before. I didn't know. I thought the rule was if you got a test, that's it, you end the quarantine. But apparently it's about encouraging people to get tested if you've been at any of those low risk sites. So they don't insist on quarantine. But the bit that concerned me, which definitely concerned the operator I was talking to, was they had no idea. They had literally had a couple of kids at their site who were waiting on test results. And that's a little bit concerning when you don't know what's going on with the rest of that whole group and your instructors and the teachers. So yeah, but apparently they had done absolutely nothing wrong. Both of the kids came back and tested negative, got results, but I didn't know that was possible. And just to flag that out there, and I don't know if that's something to think about. I think if Queensland Health's saying they're low risk and it's okay for them to go about their business, again, it's hard to then put a rule in place of, you know, if you are waiting on a test, don't be coming through my door. But that's sort of what people are doing in relation to the mandatory vaccination. So maybe it's something to think about as well. I don't know. We don't want to create the stigma of someone not being able to turn up at camp or turn up in their activities because they're waiting on a test result when they've done the right thing and gone and got tested. I don't know. It's a very prickly one. And I just wanted to flag it that it is a thing. And I didn't even know about it. I'm happy, I can share the link to that webpage if you want to have a look at it for yourself, because I didn't even know it existed. So I'll pop that in there because I've got it here in the chat. Any comments on that one? Thoughts?
My understanding, that's always been the case. If you have a test result, you quarantine until you get it. Like if you have a test, you quarantine until you get the result.
I think it was, mate, but it seems, I've just shared that link. There's this low risk category which specifically says you don't have to quarantine unless you develop symptoms. And yeah, I think that's, like, I certainly didn't know it. Gavin?
Yeah, it's only since the Sunnybank cluster that the low risk thing's been brought up by media and that, and I've always wondered where did that come from and all that sort of thing too.
I wasn't even aware of it until I had this conversation, and even then I was like, surely that's not right. You couldn't go to camp if you've had a test, but it turns out if you're in this low risk contact site, then they're saying you can go about your business, which I mean, I guess it's all about risk management, isn't it? And that's what outdoors people do well, but then I guess that's what Queensland Health are doing as well. So yeah, it just really sort of threw me for six. I just wanted to flag it that it is a thing. I've just shared that link in there. But yeah, have a look at it and just inform yourselves. I'm not trying to say we should, put a blanket rule in place or anything like that, but I just wanted to flag it that it is possible. And that would actually affect also, and I don't know, this might be going down another rabbit hole. If you're waiting on a test result, I dare say you need to keep your mobile phone with you. And I know a lot of programs where not, don't encourage kids to have phones at all, but I guess it's got to have some way of communicating just in case. But it's a bit of a worry, I would have thought. I don't know. I guess if it's low risk enough for Queensland Health to say you can, continue to live your life in the community, then you'd have to think it's a pretty low risk for them to categorise it that way. So, thoughts, questions? Have I just thrown a nasty spanner in the works at the last moment?
Yeah, that would make me fairly nervous too, Dom.
Yeah, well, the operator who I spoke to said they had, staff who were like, oh, hang on, and I completely agree, but only when I heard about it, just have a look at that website, and I've just shared it in the chat. But yeah, and as Gavin said, I didn't even know there was this category of low risk sites. So there's so much information out there, and it's hard for us to keep across it all, I guess. So it's another one, live and learn. And again, that was only through a conversation with someone who'd come across it directly, or been I was going to say been exposed. I shouldn't use that term. Who'd encountered it. Sorry, phone's ringing. Hope it's not someone about a phone over thing. So I just wanted to flag that one too, and if we get more information about that we can share, then we will too. Any other questions, observations, comments? No? I do need to flag Outdoors Queensland Awards. Finalists were announced last week, and it's an online ceremony on the last Friday in October, the 29th. So hope to see plenty of you there for our awards. The next session of these is in a fortnight. And the other one will be just launched, which I should have mentioned earlier, is the Great Getaways Queensland, where Outdoors Queensland is doing that in conjunction with the Australian Camps Association. And we're running camps for people over 55. So we've done our first activity day, and we're going to have our first camp for people over 55 in early October, so in a couple of weeks' time. So we're really looking forward to do that. And then we've got another one in November. So there'll be more info about those in our bulletins and that sort of thing. But we're really hoping, looking forward to running those, and hopefully we'll get plenty of bookings for those as well. So that's fun. If you know anyone who might be interested in doing that sort of thing, it's more the merrier. We'd love to have plenty of people at those camps. So there's plenty of info on our website about those as well. But otherwise, that's about it. We might finish off there. We've got a couple of minutes bonus into your day. So thanks very much, everyone, for joining us today. I think Kathy gets the award for largest commute from the Lakes District in the UK. So it's lovely to see you again, Kathy. Wade, did you want to say something, mate?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, everyone, for inviting me to be part of this discussion. I've enjoyed the little tips that I took this morning with Charles Darwin University out here at the moment. So we're just keeping it real up here in the Northern Territory.
Good on you, mate. Thanks very much for joining us, Wade. It's great to see. So today we've had Laurie in New South Wales, Wade in the Northern Territory, David in Victoria, Kathy from the UK, and the the Queensland contingent as well. So lovely. Thanks very much, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you in a fortnight, or maybe speak to you before then.
Be on the other side of daylight saving.
Some people are bringing in daylight saving. Some of us are going to stay strong on that one.